In the late 1960s, a killer in Northern California did something almost no murderer had done before. He didn't just attack people, he wrote to newspapers. He sent ciphers, he mocked police, and he turned himself into a symbol. The world remembers him as the Zodiac killer. More than 50 years later, his letters are real. Some of his codes are solved. His victims are known. And yet the one thing that matters most is still missing: his name. The Zodiac case never faded for one reason. It has everything: confirmed murders, surviving witnesses, police sketches, physical evidence, handwritten letters, ciphers mailed to the press, and a killer who seemed to enjoy being watched. Investigators officially link him to 5 murders and 2 attempted murders between 1968 and 1969, although he claimed far more in his letters. Even now, the case remains one of the most infamous unsolved serial murder cases in American history. The first confirmed attack happened on December 20th, 1968, on Lake Herman Road near Benicia. Teenagers David Faraday and Betty Lou Jensen were shot beside their car. At the time, it looked like a brutal but isolated double murder. No one knew it would become the start of something much larger. Then, on July 4th, 1969, the pattern returned. Darlene Ferrin and Michael Mageau were attacked in a parked car at Blue Rock Springs Park in Vallejo. Ferrin was killed. Mageau survived. Later that night, a man called police and claimed responsibility not only for that shooting, but also for the earlier Lake Herman Road murders. That call changed the meaning of both crimes. They were no longer random. They were connected. What made the Blue Rock Springs attack so important was simple. Now there was a survivor. Michael Mageau gave police a description, and for the first time, investigators were no longer hunting a faceless rumor. They were hunting someone who had come close, fired into a car, and then calmly called it in himself.
I want to report a double murder. Go 1 mile east on Columbus Parkway, Upland Park. You'll find kids in a brown car. They were shot with a 9mm Luger.
A few weeks later, the case changed again. On July 31st, 1969, 3 Bay Area newspapers received nearly identical letters from the killer. Each letter included one part of a 408-character cipher. He demanded they be printed, and he was no longer just taking credit for murders. He was building a public identity. This is the point where the case becomes something bigger than a manhunt. It becomes media warfare. The 408 cipher was solved within days by Donald and Betty Harden, a schoolteacher couple. The message was disturbing, but it did not reveal his name. Instead, it painted a picture of a man obsessed with killing, control, and the fantasy of an afterlife built on domination. It gave investigators a psychological window, but not the one thing they needed most: identification. And then came one of the most famous phrases in true crime history. "This is the Zodiac speaking." With that, he named himself. Not the police, not the newspapers. Him. That mattered. Because from then on, every letter, every threat, every code, every new killing or claimed killing came wrapped in a persona he had created on purpose. On September 27, 1969, the Zodiac changed his method. At Lake Berryessa in Napa County, Brian Hartnell and Cecilia Shepard were approached by a man wearing a black, executioner-style hood marked with a crosshair symbol. He tied them up, then stabbed them. Hartnell survived. Shepard died 2 days later. This attack mattered because it showed the killer could adapt. He was not locked into one weapon, one setting, or one routine. He could change and still remain in control. Even stranger, after the attack, the killer wrote on Hartnell's car door, listing previous crime dates and marking the symbol again. It was part confession, part signature, part performance. He wanted investigators to know this was his work. Then came the murder of cab driver Paul Stine in San Francisco on October 11, 1969. This one shattered any illusion that the Zodiac only hunted isolated couples in parked cars. Stine was shot in Presidio Heights, a dense urban neighborhood. Witnesses saw a man leaving the scene. Police sketches followed. And because pieces of Stine's shirt were later mailed with Zodiac letters, investigators knew the writer and the killer were the same person. This was one of the strongest links in the whole case, and still, it was not enough to catch him. This is where the Zodiac case becomes uniquely powerful on YouTube and in the public imagination. The evidence is not just forensic, it is narrative. He wrote letters that taunted police and newspapers. He included ciphers, symbols, threats, and details from crime scenes. Some of those details were never public, which made the correspondence feel authentic and terrifying at the same time. The first cipher was solved quickly. The second major one, the 340 cipher, was not solved until 2020, more than 50 years later. The FBI confirmed the solution after private codebreakers submitted it. But once again, the result did not reveal the killer's identity. It only reinforced his narcissism, his obsession with death, and his need to keep the game going. Even after half a century, one of the most famous Zodiac breakthroughs still did not answer the main question. That is part of what makes Zodiac different from most old murder cases. Normally, time erases things. In this case, time kept adding layers. New suspect theories, new document releases, new cipher work, new attempts at DNA. But the center stayed empty. The easiest version of this story is to say, police failed. The real version is messier. The Zodiac operated across multiple jurisdictions, used different methods, struck in different environments, and left behind evidence that was disturbing but incomplete. Late 1960s forensics were limited. Handwriting comparisons were not enough. Fingerprints were partial. Witness descriptions were useful, but not decisive. And every new suspect seemed to run into the same wall. Suspicion is not proof. Arthur Lee Allen became the most famous suspect, largely because so many details around him felt close enough to be disturbing. But close enough is exactly the problem. His identification as Zodiac was never substantiated in a way that produced charges or closure.
The Zodiac killer.
Later claims, naming Gary Francis Post, were also rejected by law enforcement, and the FBI publicly stated the case remained open and unsolved. And that is the central frustration of this case. Zodiac feels solvable. There are letters, there are ciphers, there are crime scenes, there are sketches, there are suspects.
The Zodiac killer.
It feels like there should be a final answer, but there isn't. Not officially, not legally, not conclusively. The scary part is not that police had no suspects, it's that they had names and still never got him. Arthur Lee Allen is the one most people remember. Others keep resurfacing, but every theory breaks somewhere. Every suspect explains part of the case, never all of it. That is why Zodiac still feels unfinished. More than 50 years later, the Zodiac Killer remains one of the most recognizable, unidentified murderers in the world. Not because he killed the most people, not because his methods were the most extreme, but because he understood something terrifying. Attention is power. He turned murder into theater, investigation into spectacle, and evidence into a puzzle that still outlives him. Whether he died unknown, disappeared, or simply became one more ordinary face in California. That is why the case still works. The crimes are old, the victims are real, the letters still exist. Some codes are solved, some are not. And after everything, after the witnesses, after the sketches, after the ciphers, after decades of theories, the final answer is still missing. The Zodiac Killer was never officially identified, and that absence is exactly what keeps the case alive.